and quite a few people took up the land at $1 an acre and married one another and built houses and produced children. We were mostly farmers and mule traders and storekeepers. There was some bragging and some lying, but on the whole, we were a pleasant and courteous people tending to our own business. It seems to me now that those days were like an endless summer, stored with pleasure in my memory. I suppose it can be said that I parted from my youth on a Saturday morning in the year 1905, just before noon, with a temperature close to 100 degrees. That was the summer that my grandfather, known to all of us as Boss, had a vision of our nation's vast and boundless future in which the basic unit of its economy and prosperity would be a small, mass-produced cubicle containing 4 wheels and an engine. So we bought one. Or you cranked it by hand while standing in front of it with no more risk than a bone or two in your forearm. It had kerosene lamps for night driving, and when rain threatened, 5 or 6 people could readily put up the top in 10 or 15 minutes. Since my grandfather could not drive, he made my friend Boone Hagenbeck the official custodian and operator of the automobile. And when Boone first saw it, he found his soul's lily maid, the virgin's love of his rough and innocent heart. It was a yellow Winton Flyer, the first car in town. It was in that same summer that my mother's father died at home in St. Louis in the same bed in which he'd been born. We did not fear death in those days because we believed that your outside was just what you lived in and slept in and had no connection with what you were. But we did take funerals seriously, and so my family traveled to St. Louis to see the old man ceremoniously to his final rest. Mother waved to me through the window as the train drove away. They would be gone for 4 days. 4 days in which my nefarious friend Boone and his devious friend Ned would be able to find out, to their delight, how far they could go in a stolen car and still get back before the hour of reckoning. I'm sure you've often noticed how ignorant people beyond 30 and 40 are. When grown people speak of the innocence of children, they don't really know what they mean. A child is not innocent. There is no crime which a boy of 11 had not envisaged long ago. His only innocence is that he may not yet be old enough to desire the fruits of it. A serpent whispered in my ear. I heard him. I decided to go along with Boone and Ned. Oh, we lied and said we were going fishing. We were on our way. And the lie had been believed, which had me spellbound, if not appalled. But both Boone and Ned knew something that I didn't. That the rewards of virtue are cold and odorless and tasteless, and not to be compared with the bright and exciting pleasures of sin and wrongdoing. Reivers. That's an old-fashioned word from my childhood. In plain English, it meant thieves. And so we were three Reivers hightailing it for Memphis. Crossed the mud of Hell Creek bottom and found the high road to Memphis. We could see for miles, and traveling that fast and that far, we were not even surprised when the road contained another automobile. We passed each other, commingling our dust into one giant cloud like a pillar. A signpost raised to set the cover of the land with the adumbration of the future. The ant-like to and fro the incurable down payment itch, the inescapable destiny of America. We reached Memphis and we stayed at Miss Reivers' boarding house. I'd never been inside a boarding house before, and this one housed only young ladies. Remember, I was just 11. The dining room had a pianola in it, and there was a young woman with a handsome face and red hair with two of the biggest yellow-colored diamonds I ever saw in her ears. There were others, too, and my friend Boone, he knew them all. There was Miss Reba, Miss Corey, Miss Vera, and a whole lot more. Miss Reba said, "There are house rules," she said. "A house without rules is not a house," she said. It was here that I had my first taste of beer, and I liked it fine. That night from my room upstairs, I could hear sounds of fiddlers and gamblers and people whooping it up. It was the next morning after a night full of hijinks that Boone's friend Ned announced in a swaggery voice that since Grandfather couldn't even drive and therefore didn't need the automobile, he'd up and swap Grandfather's car for a horse. It was like a dream, like a nightmare. It struck Boone and me at the very same time. We fell over each other getting to the door. The yellow Winton Flyer, Grandfather's pride and joy, was gone. Ned pleaded, "Listen to me. We ain't just got a horse," he said. "The man throwed in a horse race too. All we gotta do is bet the horse against Boss's automobile, which the man will be glad to bet because naturally he wouldn't mind winning his horse back too, so all we gotta do is win that race." Well, my heart went down to my shoes. All we had now was a horse whose very ownership was dubious, a horse of whose past we knew only that he had consistently run just fast enough to finish second to the other horse to be raced tomorrow. I said a prayer under my breath because I knew that of all the human occupations, the racing of horses and all those concerned or involved in the racing of horses were most certainly in God's hand. I, being 11 and smaller than the other two, I was chosen to ride Lightning. Oh, he was beautiful. He had that long neck for balance, those laid-back shoulders for speed, and those big hocks for drive. And so, carried on his back, racing on a smoke-colored shape, it took me completely. Blood, skin, bowels, bones, and memory. I was no longer held fast on earth, but free, fluid, part of the air and sun, running my first race, a man-sized race, with people, grown people, more people than I had ever could remember seeing at one time before, watching me win it. grandfather suddenly showed up again, leaning on his cane. I stood at his knee and learned the lesson of my life. A man has to take responsibility for his actions before he can be called a man. I guess I wasn't one because I fell against his chest and cried. And then we all went home, Lightning in a boxcar, and the rest of us in the Winton Flyer. As we turned up the street toward home, I thought, funny, it hasn't changed. If all the things I had seen and done and heard and learned had changed nothing, and nothing were smaller or larger or older or wiser, then the last 4 years had been wasted. I could not understand why everything was the same when I wasn't the same anymore. For I had had my moment of glory, that brief, fleeting glory which of itself cannot last, but while it does, is the best game of all.